right, Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
We're going to talk more about Iran. So, in the early hours of Saturday morning, the United States entered a new phase of conflict with Iran. The president called it necessary. He cited, quote, imminent threats. He even called for the Iranian people to overthrow their government. But when you strip away the rhetoric and look at the facts, this was not a response to an attack in motion. There was no public evidence of a nuclear weapon about to be built. U.S. intelligence assessments have said Iran was not on the brink of producing a bomb. In fact, after the June strikes, President Trump declared Iran's nuclear program, quote, obliterated. So if it was obliterated, the obvious question is why escalate now? That's why many experts are calling this the ultimate choice of war. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane gave a press conference earlier this morning about the operation. Here's part of what Kane had to say.
This is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses.
Under international law, there's a major distinction between a preemptive strike, stopping an attack that's clearly about to happen, and a preventive war, attacking because a threat could materialize someday down the road. One is broadly recognized as a legitimate self-defense. The other is far more controversial. What we're seeing here looks much closer to the latter. Now, in 2015, the United States and world powers finally finalized the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran nuclear deal. Under that agreement, Iran reduced its uranium enrichment stockpile by 98% and capped enrichment at 3%, which basically means Iran had enough uranium for civilian power across the country, but nowhere near the 90% required for a nuclear weapon. The International Atomic Energy Agency repeatedly verified Iran's compliance after this deal was agreed upon. Even the Trump administration certified in 2017 that Iran was meeting its obligations. Then, during Trump's first presidency, the U.S. withdrew from that deal. Most of our allies did not withdraw, and they didn't agree with our decision to do so. Iran responded by refusing to comply and reigniting its stockpiling of uranium. None of this information makes the Iranian regime sympathetic. It's not. It has brutalized its own people, crushed protests, oppressed women and minorities, funded terrorism, and contributed to the deaths of Americans. This is not a defense of that government. It's a call out that opposing a regime and launching a war are two very different things, especially without a clearly articulated strategy, congressional authorization, or visible international backing. And there's an irony here that's pretty hard to ignore. Then citizen Donald Trump predicted in November 2011 that then President Barack Obama would start a war with Iran because Obama has, quote, absolutely no ability to negotiate. He said he's weak and ineffective, and this is the only way he would get reelected. Now, Donald Trump warning against a politically motivated war with Iran, yet the Obama administration did negotiate an agreement that significantly constrained Iran's nuclear program without the use of military force. Now, fast forward to now, this new attack was launched without months of public debate, without a vote in Congress, which the Constitution requires to declare war, and without a clear explanation of why this moment demanded military escalation. Instead, the American people got a 2:30 a.m. video and a call for regime change in a country of 90 million people with no ground troops planned and no roadmap for what comes next. Now, history tells us regime change rarely ends cleanly. Iraq, Afghanistan taught us that. During his 2024 campaign, President Trump promised to end wars, not start them. Over the past year, he's ordered military strikes in 7 nations. That's a clear escalation. War is not a campaign talking point. It's the most serious power a president holds. If we're going to risk American lives and destabilize an entire region, the American people deserve more than a midnight video and shifting explanations. They deserve clarity, legality, and a strategy that makes sense.
Yeah, I broadly agree. As I said earlier, I'm waiting to be persuaded that we have a plan and a strategy, and this is all worth doing. I'm not persuaded that the Iranians posed much, they posed no threat to us, that they posed much, if any, threat to Israel. And I'm also not sure what the end game is. It sounds like we want the regime replaced, but we're not, I think, going to take the steps that would be necessary. Just a bombing campaign from the air does not replace a regime. You need a ground occupation to do it. And I don't think there's much appetite for that. Please, someone, dear God, tell me we would actually have to take a vote in Congress if we were going to occupy the country with ground troops. I don't know what that would look like. That would be huge. There'd be casualties, significant casualties on our side if that happened, to say nothing of casualties of innocent people in Iran. So I don't, and we're doing that. Israel's doing that. What is, again, this was not laid out before Congress. So that's the frustration here. And we have every reason to be skeptical in the region. Now, different things are different. You know, Trump said this in 2011. That was 15 years ago. It could be this situation has changed in then. Iran has become more hardline, more intractable, its regime less reasonable. It was just prepared to do a mass execution of protesters, right? That's what's different between now and then. So it could be the case that it was unreasonable to attack them or get into war with them then, but it was necessary now. It could be necessary. I just need to be explained why it's necessary. And is it just for humanitarian reasons because they were doing a brutal crackdown? Because that would be different than, well, they're about to attack. Like, which is it? They were about to attack us, or we had to protect the people domestically, or we want to replace the regime, or we were just negotiating. We want to show we mean business. When we say stand down, we are going to blow you up unless you stand down.
What I keep hearing from administration officials is the fact that they were continuing their nuclear capabilities even after they were bombed last summer.
Right.
And so to me, I just want to go all the way back to people understanding that we had an Iran nuclear deal that multiple countries and multiple people
Trump never liked that deal.
Yeah, but they said it was working well. Which part though? Because if 98% of the country's uranium, which is required to make a nuclear bomb, was pushed out of the country and not used anymore, and they were abiding by it by all unbiased standards, and they only had 3% enough to power the country, and then you tore that deal up, and then Iran went back to continuing to stockpile, and then you threatened them for stockpiling, like you caused the issue, and then you try to solve the issue, then you want to make a deal. The deal would need to look like them collecting enough uranium to power their country still, and not collecting enough uranium to put a bomb out there that can even reach anywhere. And also, why are we acting like it was an imminent threat? There's no way. If anybody understands how to build a nuclear weapon, you can't do that in a few weeks. So to stockpile the uranium might take weeks, but to actually build a tool that can even reach anywhere significant that's a nuclear bomb would take years. And so to go from 7 months ago to say that it was an imminent threat, it actually doesn't make sense. So I just need a clear understanding of how you tore up an agreement, had no agreement put in place to follow that, but then threatened the same country because they're acting as if the agreement doesn't exist, right. But it doesn't exist anymore.
Trump, all I will say is Trump has, from the get-go, hated that deal and thought he could get a better one in place.
And because he wasn't able to get a better deal, he went to war. The same thing that he criticized Obama with when Obama was in negotiation.
This might be part of getting a deal.
I know, but we killed children is what I brought up. Like children died because you want to make a deal. I think that's
we want a deal that keeps America
safe. If there was a way that we could have negotiated in Geneva or kept those conversations going to avoid mostly school children, I think 158 different people around a school dying, that would be the ideal way to move forward, especially if you haven't went through Congress to figure out going to war.
They can stop chanting death to America and to Israel and stop having
the school children weren't chanting that. The school children weren't. So that's
the regime.
Yeah, the school children are not the regime, and that's what we keep conflating every time we get into a war with people or we support a country getting into a war. We act like the innocent civilians need to die. But if we said that we care about the citizens because these people do not,
we do care about.
We can't say then turn around and kill the citizens. Like we said that we care because they were shooting people at protests, but then we went ahead and bombed a school, according to the New York Times, BBC, and several other outlets, that left mostly children dead. I just need some rationality because, again, going back to 2015, there was a deal in place that stopped and prevented them that was largely effective from making nuclear bombs. But then we tore it up, and then they continued building their uranium enrichment, and then we bombed that site and then said it was an imminent threat. So we caused the problem and don't have a real solution. And now innocent people that just happen to live in Iran are dead.
It is unfortunate, and the administration should explain how we're going to get out of this or improve the situation in Iran, and should do it soon.
Congressman Ro Khanna calling on the House Oversight Committee to depose President Trump after former President Clinton and former Secretary of State Clinton gave testimony. Stay with us.